Hi, I'm Dave from Calvary Church Ballina, and today I want to give some reflections on chapter 7 of Gentle and Lowly. I hope you've been following along. If not, feel free to look back at some of the previous videos. But in chapter 7, the author talks about the issue of sin. And you might think, well, hang on, a book about Jesus being gentle and lowly, talking about sin, that seems a bit strange. And that's because we as sinners have a tendency to downplay sin. We make excuses. We stop calling things sin and say, no, well, that's all fine and it's okay and it's just a choice and it doesn't harm anyone. But Jesus, as the author points out, is not a sinner. He's not like that. He doesn't downplay it. In fact, we're told here that Christ, being perfectly holy, knows and feels the horror and weight of sin more deeply than any of us sinful ones could. And so that leaves us with a bit of a paradox. How can Jesus, who knows sin and hates it so much, be gentle and lowly towards sinners like us? Well, the author points out that we need to make a distinction between two categories of people. There's those who refuse to come to Jesus, refuse to accept his forgiveness and bow their knee to him and worship him as Lord. And so for them, their sin remains on their shoulders. When it comes to Judgment Day, it's a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God for someone who is still carrying their own sin, because God's wrath and anger is the only expectation. That's one group of people. But conversely, there are those who belong to Christ, those who know their sinfulness, and rather than stubbornly refusing to acknowledge it, they trust in Christ for forgiveness. They say, I can't save myself, but on that cross, Jesus paid the price for me. He who knew no sin became sin for me. And for those people who belong to Jesus, then his attitude towards us is very different. Wrath and anger towards sin for those who aren't his. But towards us, how does he treat us when we sin? Well, we don't need to go guessing and making it up. In fact, the Bible tells us, it gives us a picture of God's attitude towards his own people when they go astray. And it comes from Hosea chapter 11, a book in the Old Testament. And in it, God's talking about his people Israel, but it gives a picture of what he is like towards his people even today. And he says this, my people are bent on turning away from me. My compassion grows warm and tender. For I am God and not a man, the Holy One in your midst, and I will not come in wrath. It's an amazing passage. We expect it to say, well, I'm God and not a man, and therefore I will come in wrath. Because we've seen here that God looks at his people in all their moral filth. They've proven their waywardness, their rebellion, time and time again. It's not an occasional slip up. We're told here that they are bent on turning away from him. But the thing is, they're sinners, but they're his people. They're his. And so what does one who loves do when their beloved is sick with sin, is wayward and rebellious and lost? What does the lover do to their beloved in that situation? Well, we see here that God, as our Father who loves us, has shown compassion and warmth and tenderness, even in our waywardness. And so I'll finish with a quote from page 71, which is a reminder for those who belong to Jesus that he is with us in every way. Have a listen to this. He sides with you against your sin, not against you because of your sin. Did you get that? He hates sin, but he loves you. And so he sides with you against your sin, not against you because of your sin. And so for me, that is such a comfort. I have turned to Jesus, I'm forgiven in him. And so how does he respond to me when I still mess up, when I sin against him, when I offend him? Does he turn away? No, he sides with me against my sin. I'm so encouraged by that. I hope you are as well. Tune in next week as we have a think and look at chapter 8. Thanks. Bye.